All right, good morning, guys. Dr. Ben here. So someone sent me a post this morning that really grinds my gears. It's a post from CNN trying to debunk the myths about the experimental transfection injections, and it's really full of a lot of misleading, just basically dishonest assertions, and I want to call them out. And of course, before we even get started, let's face it, CNN is a major news outlet, and they get 80% of their revenue from advertising for pharmaceutical companies. That's who signs their paychecks. That's how they make their money, by selling pharmaceutical advertising. So they are never going to come out with anything negative against a pharmaceutical company. And so now we find them in basically outright deception. And so I'm going to call them out. I'm going to go through each of these assertions on this post and debunk the debunk. So the first one, it says, you don't need to worry about long-term side effects, says Dr. Ashish Jha, because most side effects from vaccines show up within 2 weeks. Okay, this is ridiculous. So first off, the clinical trials for these experimental transfection injections are not complete. They will be done in 2023. So we don't have the data. So to say, well, it usually doesn't happen is not scientific evidence. And it's actually really dishonest because most vaccines are actually studied for only a period of weeks or months. For example, even the hepatitis B vaccine, which is given to babies at birth, is only studied for 5 days after injection. Then they do no more follow-up and they don't check for side effects after 5 days. So how would you know? You haven't done the science. You don't know. You don't look at that data because you don't want to know. So to say, oh, well, it doesn't happen, that's just basically sticking your head in the sand because you haven't even done the science. You don't look because you don't want to look. Now we have point number 2. We have Dr. Paul Offit saying that people say, well, I'm worried about my fertility. And Dr. Paul Offit comes along and says, well, there's no evidence to show that people's fertility has been affected. Okay, well, there's no evidence to show that it hasn't been affected because you don't do the study. Because if you read the actual clinical trials, they do not check for any adverse effects on fertility. That's something they don't look for. So they'll never find it because they don't look for it. So to say it doesn't affect it, you haven't even done the science. And furthermore, Dr. Paul Offit, just for full disclosure on him, he's on the payroll at GlaxoSmithKline, so he is paid by the pharmaceutical industry. He also has developed his own vaccine for the rotavirus and sold that for tens of millions of dollars, I believe. And then, so, to say that he's an unbiased source, and he's not even quoting actual science. He's saying there's no evidence to show it's affected fertility, but we also know, Dr. Offit, that there's no evidence to show that it doesn't affect fertility because you haven't studied it. So no one's fooled, okay? Number 3, a myth is that people say, I'm too young and healthy so I don't need to worry. And then they come in, well, what about the variants? The variants are affecting young people. Well, we haven't even studied the experimental transfection injections on the variants, so how do we know it'll protect against that? And by the way, it's a choice anyway. So I'm young and healthy. I have not been sick in years. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to get sick, and I'm not going to pass it along to anybody else. So I'm fine just taking my immune system. That's my personal choice. If you want to go out and get an experimental transfection injection, that's your choice. But I want it to be an informed choice, and that's why I'm making this video. Number 4. A myth is that people say, I've already had it, so I don't need to get the experimental transfection injection. And then they come along and say, well, yes, you still need to because experimental transfection injection-induced immunity is stronger than natural immunity. Where's your evidence? Where's the study been done? Show me the science. You haven't done it. You're making it up. It's obvious. Nobody's fooled, okay? I love how these CNN articles don't even quote sources, that they want to take this high road of we're talking to the scientists and the experts and the medical doctors and they know everything and we're going to quote them and then they don't need to provide any evidence to back up their claims. Real sciencey, guys, real sciencey. And then last assertion is I don't want to get COVID from the vaccine. I haven't heard of that happening. I've heard of people getting it after they get the experimental transfection injection. So did they get it from the injection? I don't know, but it's patently obvious that it doesn't always protect. And this 95 efficacy data may be a crock of crap. So we know that the experimental transfection injection is not as effective as they'd like to say it is. But I have not heard of anybody getting the disease from the injection. So that's not even a real concern out there, but nice try, CNN. So this is the kind of shenanigans they do. And they quote a bunch of experts who sound real sciencey, who just make misleading statements and usually talk about evidence that they don't even have. Like, oh, well, usually it doesn't happen after 2 weeks. Okay, where's your evidence? Well, there's no evidence to show that it doesn't affect fertility. There's no evidence to show that it affects fertility. Well, there's no evidence to show that it doesn't affect fertility. So this is the kind of lies and misleading statements and half-truths they like to spit out to make themselves look good. Because honestly, if this stuff was effective and safe, they wouldn't have to do this massive PR campaign, bribing people with donuts, bribing people with beer, trying to tell people they won't get their freedoms back and won't be able to live a normal life unless they get it. Turn off the news and stop listening to this crap. Do your own research, make your own decisions. You're a sovereign person. All right, that's it. I'm off my soapbox, guys. I'll catch you next time. I have a special gift for you. The Autoimmune Recovery Blueprint is my free 11-page guide, which will give you the tips to get started on healing from autoimmune disease naturally using diet and lifestyle. This blueprint is everything I wish I'd had back in 2010 when I came down with an autoimmune disease and doctors couldn't help me. Everything you need to begin or accelerate your healing journey. Free when you sign up for my email list.